Welcome one, welcome all to Life, Liberty, and Liquidity. I am Mike, and with us, as always, is Taylor and Jeff. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining with me.
All right.
Thank you.
So, I had to run and grab my hat so my bald head didn't blind the audience. Tonight we're going to be talking about Taylor just wrapped up his run for McKinney Mayor. Unfortunately, he didn't win, but he wants to share the experience with us and just kind of what he learned from it. And then also we wanted to talk about some somewhat controversial, and it's going to be politically charged. If you're a delicate, you might want to leave during that part. But for those of you that really want to hear some of the less talked about things that are going on as far as mainstream media and things like that, I welcome you to stay to the end and listen to some of that. So, how you doing, Taylor? What's you're burnt? How'd you get burnt?
Yeah. So for 12 hours, I had to stand outside and hold a sign while people are showing up to vote, and it was a lovely day outside and not that hot, and I didn't really think about being out in the sun for that long, and so I am fried right now, like totally, like all my kind of like energy is just like sucked right out of me. So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna make it through. And then today, so I had put up signs throughout the whole city. I had to go take down 100 signs today. So
Oh man, you mean all those signs that we put up?
yes, all those signs we put up, we had to get them all down. 'Cause you have to get them all down within 24 hours after.
Oh,
Which
that
is crap
sucks.
because I drove past Adriatic on my way here, and Bill Cox and Sanford still have signs up.
Yep, because they still have to go. They have to still go for another
Oh,
month.
right. Runoff.
Yep,
Come on.
they're
Oh,
in the,
okay.
those two are in the runoff. So I'll give you a little. So I got my ass handed to me.
Not not if you waited on dollars spent. You didn't.
That's true. That's true. I probably dollar for dollar matched them and what they spent versus what I spent. But the I it's you very much learn. Um, it's very an eye opening experience because afterwards, I think one of the most interesting experience was talking to people um, that were going to vote. Most people, when they're going in to vote, don't, at least in city elections, don't know any of the candidates. So they will talk to you and go, oh, well, I'll just vote for you. And then they walk in and go vote. And so being there at the poll is like incredibly important in the city election. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is fascinating. So, my competitors, they had a lot of people that were there, but they had a lot of paid people. And these paid people would just sit at these polls and harass people as they're going into the voting booths. And
It seems like that's the way to go. It's like who cares about signs and stuff leading up to the election? Just have people freaking
yeah,
bombarding
because
people as
most
they go
people
in
have
the
no idea.
polls.
Like, you spend all your money on like driving around, knocking on doors, go vote for us, and you
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
probably very well could win the election that way. But the interesting thing was experiencing it was this um, overwhelmingly in our city, people were against the expansion of our local airport. They're very upset about it. But all the candidates that were for the airport expansion, even though over 60% of the population in McKinney is against it, all of them won. So it was like, well,
That's
if
weird.
yeah, well, it made me realize that people really don't vote on the issues.
No.
And so it really, I see why the other guys, they never talk about the issues. They never talk about like what they're going to do. Um, all
Do,
it is they understand it's a machine that you go out and you put on this, the nice face, but it's all that money that's spent on the back end that wins you the election.
Do you remember that old Eddie Murphy movie, Distinguished Gentleman?
Mm-mm.
I do not.
It was actually a pretty funny movie, but it actually was kind of eye opening in a roundabout way, and I don't know if it was intentional, but basically he had the same name as an incumbent that had been voted into office just over and over and over and over, and the guy died and it wasn't that publicized, and so he ran, didn't do anything, basically just ran using his name, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy I always vote for," and just voted for him, and he ended up going to like the U.S. Congress.
Huh. That's a genius. There's someone like that that's around here. I don't know if he's run, but we had a guy for a long time. His name was Sam Johnson, and he kept winning. And there's a guy that has the same name, Sam Johnson, and he's thinking about running. So I'm wondering if he could pull that off.
Like I said, I mean, that's it. It worked in the movie anyway.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty entertaining movie.
So, but no,
I mean, tell us a little bit about just the experience in general, because I mean, I know that it was all very new for you, and I know that you were really passionate about it because of a lot of key issues, like you'd mentioned the airport, and and just kind of how ill prepared a lot of like the state of Texas, and a lot of the U.S. when it comes to the power grid and just emergency preparedness and things like that.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is the people that do go out and vote that are very educated and really know what they're talking about. I mean, not all of them came out and voted for me. I mean, a lot of them voted for other guys too. But when you would talk to these people, they really know the issues very, very well, and they vote on it. But they are maybe make up 5% of the voters, and they're just very
5%. You mean 5% of the voting population?
Yes.
Or rather, so let me rephrase that. 5% of the population of people that could vote, or 5% of the people that actually do vote. So in case
actually do vote.
So you're saying out of 10,000 voters, 500 know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that really went and researched the issues. I mean,
I'm not saying that's insulting. I'm just curious to make sure I understand your claim.
Yeah, I'm talking about like they went on everybody's webpage. They read what the candidates are actually that they stand for. They know you very well. They know your positions. It is so few of people that actually go through that. And the reality is like, I was guilty of that. Like, I go down and really know? Maybe the president or my senator I'll do that on, the Senate vote, but all the other people, but the people that really impressed me were these people were just like, they really, really wanted to know who was the best person for the job. And they would go through and they would be able to tell me, okay, this is what I like about you. This is what I like about him. Here's the things. And then they would know it for every candidate.
Yeah.
Like, you are truly impressive people. Like, I've been so involved for the last 3.5 months in our local election. And I walked in there and there was a whole group of people running for Frisco ISD trustee board. And I hadn't even met any of them. And I was like, how did I miss this group of people? And I'm running.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there and unfortunately I could not pronounce any of their names. They were all Indian guys. And I was like,
well, I defaulted, dude. Whoa. Gary. Zooming in.
Hey, everybody.
I don't know if that happened to anybody else, but to me, it was like nothing but Gary on my screen.
Oh, no, it is for everybody.
Big old Gary right in my face.
Right.
Jeff, give your observations, because you came out to a bunch of things. He went and we were both at the polls on Saturday. So tell us what you thought.
Well, so to give Taylor credit, because Taylor's like superpower and kryptonite is the same damn thing. which is he makes incredibly impassioned decisions
Like
at the drop of a hat, and he's all in,
he like
right?
epically crashes, or he's epically
Right.
successful.
And now, what I will say as a attached or correlated
Caveat.
superpower is he's fearless. So the man swings at every pitch, which means I sit back and often go, "That was a ball. Like that was that hit the dirt 12 feet before the plate. Why were you swinging?" But because he swings each time with everything he's got, he hits more home runs than anybody I know too, right? So that's how he approached this. So I mean, one day I walk in the office like, "Oh, I got a great idea. I'm running from there," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's funny." The next day he's got like signs he's ordering. I'm like, "Oh, you mean you're running for mayor? I thought this was just bullshit." So we, so he did it, right? I mean, he hit the ground running late and started, creating all these events and doing things. And so the thing I will give him credit for is, had it been me running for mayor, I'd have been real nice to the people I met. And I would have literally known nothing about the issues except for what I could wing on the debate stage. And I went to the first debate, and there was like 4 questions in a row within, 10 minutes, because they asked all the different, they asked a question. I was like, "Ooh, how's he going to answer that? I have no freaking clue." And then he answers it. It's like, "Well, actually, according to, there's 2 different taxing authorities in McKinney that for these businesses, the Economic Development Corporation." And I'm like, holy crap. And then the next one and the next one. So he did a really good job, like full credit to Taylor for actually getting in and diving in and learning the issues. And then being the only one that usually would not pivot to a straight talking point. I'm going to be like, "Jeff, tell us why you're so out of shape and you have, cholesterol pumping through your veins like sludge." I'm like, "Well, that's a great point. And I'm glad you asked that. I've been married to my wife for just people just pivoting."
Yeah. The usual, like, the politician
That's
answer.
all great for Taylor. But what I learned was it didn't really matter if he knocked the answer out of the park because it didn't happen often, to be fair to these other gentlemen. But there was a few times each debate I went to or organized speaking event where Taylor particularly had a point or a comment or an insight that should have been like a record skipping, stopping, like, "Wait a minute, let's look at it further."
Let's dive deeper on this.
People were just like, "Oh, okay," and then move right on, right?
Yeah.
So what I told my wife this morning is, and I don't think this was Taylor's intent, but for me, it was pretty disheartening. Not that I expected Taylor to win, because he wasn't going to spend, $250,000 to do it, especially when he's not taking anybody else's money. But I was disheartened by the fact that we all bitch that, like, "Oh, it's the good old boy network, and it's the career politicians, and it's this revolving door of politicians to lobbyists to politicians, and corruption." But then none of us, I'm speaking in the general sense.
I know what you mean.
Nobody then backs the regular guy. And it's like, well, if you don't want the status quo, you can't vote for the status quo. And I really think had he started 6 months ago and dropped $300,000, I think there's a really good chance, at the very minimum, he would have been in a runoff. And the reality is, the problem with that is that immediately eliminates almost every normal human with a good heart that wants to serve their community.
No, absolutely. Because if you don't have money backing you, you don't have a chance.
And you also have to have a job where you could do nothing for basically a year in campaign.
Well, and there's also the fact that, like Taylor was talking about, the majority of people, aren't educated voters. There's a very small people that are, and then even of the people that show up, it's a very small fraction of people that show up for local elections. And oddly enough, it's what impacts their daily life the most. The stuff that happens at the federal level does not impact, the day-to-day life of, the average citizen as much as, local elections do. And so, that's what kind of boggles my mind, where, everyone is so wrapped around the axle about, who wins for president and stuff like that, where it's like very little that the president does, it impacts their life as much as their local politicians.
Mike, there's someone way prettier than you in the background. I just thought you should know.
That could literally be anybody, Jeff. Yeah, she is very pretty.
Fine, we'll stick with you.
Oh, trust me, I'd much rather look at her too.
Well, but the reality of it is like there was people that I met that I was like, oh, this person would be a way better mayor than any of us running. But they can't. They couldn't because of maybe financial reasons or whatever. But they won't. They're like, oh well, there's this and that, and I'm like, just do it.
I mean, look what happened. Look what happened with you. They had people coming after you, trying to, attack your character, and they were, there's somebody was, putting bad reviews online and stuff like that. And, I mean, it's dirty. It's politics is dirty.
Yeah, the week I'm supposed to be out campaigning, a TDI auditor randomly shows up at our office, and I can't go out and do things because I have to sit here and do paperwork. I'm like, how does the TDI auditor who hasn't shown up for 2 years just randomly show up at our office the day that I'm supposed to be out campaigning or the week? So.
Yeah, no, and that's the problem. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's going to take a great awakening of the American people to really educate themselves and get actively involved in politics, and and not just if it has a D or an R by the name or anything like that. You really need to understand who it is you're voting for, and the character, not the political affiliation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we did it. It was nice meeting our friends and neighbors, right? Or new people. I mean, it was most of the events. People were friendly and engaged, but so it wasn't an issue with any of the people we met. And I would even say that the other politicians were more pleasant, at least to our face, than I expected. I don't necessarily think any of them are bad guys. I don't really think that at all. However, I do think, particularly for the person that's leading the runoff, he's very, very, very much old guard, same old, kind of connected. And that's not. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. I was weirdly encouraged by what Taylor did as far as how it affected his family and our office and the people we interacted with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in a bigger way, kind of disheartened because I was like, oh, this is what happens when somebody that has a good heart tries to go do something absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, Gary, we haven't seen you for a minute. I know that you've got some work done, but how you feeling, man?
Very sore.
Okay.
Very sore.
What type of work
basically
you
put
have
in a
done?
big cage in my lower spine.
What, you did what?
Cage, they ended up doing an anchor to both of my hips.
Why did you have to have that
He had to get a bunch of vertebrae in his lower back fused with rods, and then they anchored it off to his pelvis, and he had some pretty major work done. He's becoming bionic.
Tell me that's
bionic before, but right here.
Yeah.
Did you have some kind of injury or issue, or did God just give you really shitty lower vertebrae?
Yes is the answer. So initially I blew out L5 and went to the doc, and nobody caught it. Like 8 years later, after many treatments and injections and all blockers, a whole bunch of things, I finally said, all right, that's enough. So I went to the surgeon. The surgeon goes, I know what your problem is. You have too many vertebrae. You have no space between your discs for your discs. So yeah, it's God's fault. I have too many vertebrae.
Oh man!
Okay.
So did they remove one or something, or?
Well, they can't. So the one major extra vertebrae, the facets fused to my hips. If they were to remove that out, I'd be in a wheelchair the rest of my life.
Oh, okay.
So I told them, yeah, I'll choose the cage then, so I can at least walk around and enjoy my life.
Yeah, no, that
And
worked.
really annoy TSA for the rest of your life.
I sure will.
It's going to get weird. You're going to get naked in that room, and it's still going to beep.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be awesome. It's gonna be majestic.
You know what you should do? Just like before you go through, just like look at them, kind of lick your lips, and just be like, "Be gentle."
It's not a horrible idea.
Oh.
The guy will respond, I will.
Gary gets mad at his wife, like, you know what?
That
If you're going to
did
be like
not
this,
go
I'm just
how
gonna
I was
fly
planning.
somewhere.
Let's see.
Well, glad that you have so successful so far.
So far, yeah. I mean, I'm literally stuck in my recliner, and I've got my 24-hour mice machine, and here's my favorite.
Oh yeah, got the
Oh,
crutch.
Yeah, the last surgery I had, I couldn't get around without a walker for the first couple of weeks. This one, I only need the cane to go on up and down the stairs. Other than that, I have no problems.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's super nice.
Mike, you want me to jump into the really political stuff?
Yeah, no, it's let's go ahead and dive head first. But you know what? I'll start it out. I'll set the mood. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, while you do that, while you're getting set up, I was only going to be on here for a little bit because I'm actually grading papers at the same time, and I should
All
probably
right.
focus on that. And then, if you want to know the other half of my answer, Mike can tell you later on via text.
All right.
Fair enough.
Hey, good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you,
Well,
brother.
hey, glad you're recuperating.
Yeah,
Try
me
not
too.
to break your back anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you wish for this. Feel
For
better?
the rest of my life, all I got to do is just relax.
There you go. That
Yeah.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So next weekend, though, I'm planning on that. So,
Awesome.
okay, you guys take care.
Awesome,
Okay.
buddy. You take care
Take care,
too.
guys.
All right. So here we go. This will set the mood.
Israeli Defense Force foreign military receiving United States military benefit. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, just passed a bill that gives the soldiers of the IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Force, you now have Israeli Defense Force foreign military receiving United States military benefits.
This is true,
While
folks.
But you have exceeded everyone. We cannot thank you enough.
The first bill that I'm going to bring to this floor in just a little while will be in support of our dear friend Israel.
People here can't even afford health insurance, and now they're giving it to a foreign country, which in my opinion is a f***ing enemy. They're the most disgusting, evil country on earth that has attacked the United States multiple times. And you're gonna give them benefits? And you're telling me?
All right. There we go. So that's very spirited. You know, I didn't go through and fact check all the stuff that he said, but I know that Taylor has, and so let's go ahead and dive right into it, Taylor. Like, I mean, have you fact checked what he was saying?
Well, I know that they put that bill out. I don't know. I don't think it's passed though.
Well, let's ask Grok. You go ahead and start talking about it, and I'll see
Yes.
what Grok has to say about it.
So there's some interesting things that happen because I want to come from the side of cities in McKinney, because not cities in McKinney, cities of Texas, because this happened this week. In Texas, there's a city, San Marcos, that their council found out that they were giving $4.4 million a year to Israel. And the city council, the city council then said, this is absurd. We need this money for our own citizens. And so they said, we are no longer going to fund Israel with these things. I don't think it was like a political statement at all. They're just saying, hey, we want our money to stay here. And Governor Abbott tweeted that the city cannot do that they will not tolerate anti-Semitism.
Huh.
And And everybody's kind of been in uproar going, how is not wanting to give state tax funds or city tax funds
Yeah.
to Israel anti-Semitism? Like, this seems like crazy talk.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that the left did, you know. I mean, because this is the right that's doing this. Is it kind of the same thing that the left did, where like everything's racist? You know, it's like if you don't agree with us, then you're a racist. It's like this: if you don't agree with everything we do for Israel, you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
Well, we've had several disagreements, Mike, where I've just assumed you're racist against me.
Well,
Yeah.
I am. I am.
You don't like people that are whiter than you. That's what it is.
It's true. It's
That's
true.
the shine.
Yeah.
Do I got other parts whiter?
Yeah. That are even whiter. Like, what are they? Transparent?
Yes, translucent. Actually, I got the map. I got the highway map of Arkansas right here on my chest.
Well, Jeff, it's because you're more privileged than we are.
I feel that. Money just falls into my hands when I walk outside from heaven. It's amazing.
People just walk up and hand you money just because you're so white.
You look like you need even more.
Yeah. So I went into this more, and I was like, and so went online, found out, holy smokes, this is actually true. Our governor is actually saying this crazy shit. Like, this is and then today, there, I guess Denton found out that they're the city that's just right west of us. They're giving.
Guys, if you've been to Denton, they have so much money that they should give to everybody. It does not look like an old rundown piece of shit at all.
And they're giving $1.8 million to Israel. And and then and so I started going online and looking through their budgets. I went through San Marcos' budget. I went through Denton's budget, and there's no mention of giving this money to Israel. And
so how do you know about it then?
The city councils are saying that they know that they're doing it and that they're trying to stop it.
So where is the money? Like, if it's not in the budget,
you got to understand how budgets work with cities. And
that's what I'm asking, because I know I don't know, so I'm guessing most of the people that are listening don't know.
So if you go look at your city's budget, just take a few minutes and do that. You do not really see everything. They give huge line items. So it'll be like $200 million for water, and you're like, well, what the hell does that mean? Like, you can.
Yeah, is that water lines? Is that a water treatment plant? What are we? Yeah, what are we talking about here?
$50 million to the police force. Well, what else did you put under the police force? So what city budgets do is, they'll give you, and they'll say they're transparent because, look, we gave you the big line item. Or what they do is they do give money to an organization or something, and then that organization will then give the money away to whatever. But you don't get to see the other agencies' budget.
And I actually ran into that because I did a deep dive with my buddy Drew on the Inflation Reduction, and started digging into that. And there was a huge, basically the majority of the money, billions and billions of dollars that went to NGOs. And then, so I went into each of those NGOs and looked into them. And basically they were the ones that were funding a lot of the, the BLM, protests and, and a lot of those sorts of things. And a couple of those organizations were actually head up by prior Weather Underground. I don't know if you guys remember the Weather Underground from like the 60s. They were a terrorism group here in the U.S. that was going around planting bombs. We're gonna get totally canceled on YouTube. I don't care. They robbed banks. Like a couple of them went to prison for robbing banks and stuff like that, and it just all kinds of crazy stuff. But they've gotten out, and a couple of them were heading up these NGOs, and they were getting taxpayer money to basically fund, Antifa and BLM running around doing what they were doing. So yeah, you're 100% right. It's like a roundabout way of, hey, we're being transparent, but no, are you really? And really, makes my point that I'm always making about, putting budgets on blockchain to where they're fully transparent, where
Yeah.
every cent is accounted for. I mean, like,
All the way to the end.
Department gets 50 million. This much was spent on bullets. This much was spent on, paying people's salaries. This much went to maintenance. This much went to this, and it breaks it down.
That's why it will never happen.
Exactly.
Well,
No, because they can't send money to Israel. It's like,
so two things on that before I forget. One, because I know you were looking up at Grok, and I want to hear what Grok said about the clip you played. I went to ChatGPT and put it in, and this is slightly better than what he was saying. Right now, it's a House bill that's not passed.
okay.
It's according to this, in May. It was introduced in May of 2024, and currently it's at the House Committee on Veteran Affairs. Here's what's interesting about it, though, because the way it was, and this is why we all need to be careful about social media, right? Hopefully not us, but we can make mistakes too, right? But
Yeah.
the bill is called the Protecting Americans in the IDF Act, and it aims to extend certain U.S. military benefits to American citizens serving in the IDF.
That's a little different.
So the two main things it wants to amend, there's two laws. One is called is SCRA, the Service Members Civil Relief Act. This act provides legal and financial protections to active duty U.S. service members, such as caps on interest rates, protections against foreclosures, and relief from service.
Yeah. Like whenever I deployed, I was like anybody that's deployed in the military, they're covered by that.
And then the second thing is the Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act safeguards employment of individuals who leave civilian jobs before. So basically what this really is saying is if you are an American citizen who also happens to be an Israeli citizen, and you go choose to serve in the IDF. And I think when I first read this, I'm wondering if it's only applies to people that are also soldiers for us. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like that.
I would be curious if this is like military, like U.S. military members that take like some sort of leave of absence to go and serve, over there. If those protections would be included, or if this is just American citizens that aren't in the U.S. military.
Yeah, I think it's citizens. Oh, just U.S. citizens. And as a matter of fact, I would wonder if you could even serve in the IDF and the U.S. military at the same time, because you think there'd be some conflicts of interest there, from a classification, just from like things you may know, right?
I honestly don't know for sure, but I would say that in the reserves or National Guard, you might be able to, because there is provisions for things like missions, like Mormon missions, religious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if they consider, serving in Israel, like a religious, tour, kind of thing, then maybe it's covered under that. I won't pretend like I know, but
you cannot actively serve. I don't know if that's.
So the question is do we do this with any other nation though?
No, so that was the main thing. The controversial debate. Supporters argue that American citizens serving in allied forces like the IDF deserve similar protections as those serving in the U.S. military. Critics contend that extending U.S. military benefits to individuals serving in foreign armed forces, especially in complex geopolitical contexts, sets a concerning precedence. So I would say you either say, hey, if you happen to have if you happen to be from wherever and you have dual citizenship and your country's under attack and you want to go defend them, I'm okay with saying, look, you can't get in trouble for missing jury duty or your house can't get foreclosed upon. But it's weird if it's just for one country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so
that's strange.
Yeah. But I think this is the problem is what's going on is like, okay, so on the federal level, we fund Israel. On state levels and city levels, we're giving money to Israel.
Hmm.
Almost every one of our Congress members, Senate and House, have AIPAC handlers.
Yep.
They are told how to vote on things. They are told if they don't vote and do certain things that these AIPAC groups are then going to fund their opponents in their primaries. And they have had Congress people removed that have gone against them. And this has gone back all the way to, I mean, there's a famous statement, I think it's from Jimmy Carter, like basically saying you don't go against Israel or you won't be reelected.
Yeah.
So
what is AIPAC? Someone asked in the
yeah.
It's the lobbyist group for Israel. It's the only.
I personally don't think there should be any
lobbying
allowed in Washington D.C. I think it should be illegal.
So the weird thing is it is illegal for a foreign nation to lobby or for congressmen to entertain like foreign countries' lobbyists, except for Israel. Yeah. Israel is given this exception. Why? Why is this one country so ingrained in every part? Because literally what we're doing is we are funding Israel. They are using lobbyists to control our politics.
AIPAC, by the way. I don't know if you say, you might be pronouncing AIPAC, but it's American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Yeah, it's still pronounced AIPAC.
Yeah.
But this is like one thing that, I mean, there are a lot of people that believe that the deep state, when people talk about the deep state, it really is Israel. It is the group that controls pretty much Congress and the president. And what was the one person said that was it Clinton was told that America will fight 7 wars for Israel, and we have fought 6 of them so far. The 7th one is Iran.
And that's one that's currently heating up.
Let me pull it because let me see if I can find it here really quick. Make sure I'm not making that up.
Oh no, it's I mean it's important that we fact check ourselves, and I absolutely, I mean we can do it live. But this has been going on for a long time. This isn't new. It's I think it's just becoming with the rise of social media, it's becoming, more and more, because I would dare say, if you want to go down that rabbit hole of, conspiracy, if they're that influential in our, politics in Washington, D.C., they're definitely that influential when it comes to our media, our mainstream media. So, for the longest time, I mean, you never heard any of this kind of stuff, and it's really just with the rise of social media that we're able to hear about just the tip of the iceberg on this. And like I said, I mean, I would not be surprised if on YouTube we're going to get nerfed when it comes to views and stuff like that because of some of the stuff that we're saying right now.
Yeah, here it is. This is the idea has roots in a widely circulated quote from General Wesley Clark, a retired 4-star U.S. Army general. In 2007, Ennio Clark said, "We are going to fight 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and then finish off Iran." He claims this plan was shown to him at the Pentagon around 2001, just after 9/11. Instead, he described this as a Pentagon plan shaped by U.S. defense policy that was involving Israel. The 7 countries named were Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Iran. And then we've gone through everyone. Iran is the only one that we haven't done. All right. And so,
well, and we all know what happened in Libya. I mean, was it Gaddafi that got, their country, honestly was very prosperous. I mean, a lot of the, universal health care, education, there was a lot of things that were really good in that country for its citizens. And what was it? Clinton was the one that went in, basically, caused a coup that had, the groups come in and oust him and drag him through the streets, once they caught up with him.
Yep.
Gaddafi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember on the news
No,
where they
I
were
can't
they were
say
they were
so.
they were dragging him around back, behind a truck.
Yeah, he was assassinated by Libyan rebel forces in 2011.
Yeah. But that's when Hillary Clinton was secretary. Secretary.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, it's just there's definitely a lot of shadiness, and to be honest, I wonder if it's just if the roots go too deep, and if just our system is just far too gone to bring back.
Yeah, I mean it is an interesting like when you start looking into all this, it's like, well, how is this like so much swept under the rug, but you can't get any news agency or
I think
anybody to
it's always
report on it?
I think it's always been this way. I think we just now finally have the tools as a populace around the globe to even shine a light, whereas before it was just the accepted order of operations.
Well,
You know what I
that's the
mean?
thing is, well, I mean, you've seen those videos of, those creepy videos of all the, the news, anchors, basically saying the same thing. It starts out with like one person saying it, and then two, and then four, and then eight, and it just
Yeah.
keeps multiplying, and they're all just reading a script off a teleprompter. And that's why people don't trust the mainstream media anymore.
Sure.
That's why the majority of people now trust, platforms like X and, YouTube and, Facebook and, all the different social medias. The problem is it's on us now to fact check things. It's on us to ensure that, the things that we're basing our opinions, on that they are, solid, that they are factual. Because otherwise, you're basing your opinions on propaganda, and you're just being just as manipulated and usually emotion is attached to that.
Well, yeah,
So
I think that's the worst side of particularly the common man journalism, right? Is it's so easy to get because of the monetization of it,
mhm.
right? If somebody is getting a lot of likes and clicks by saying something that a certain group affirms their beliefs, confirmation bias drug, right? Shoot into my veins kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, it becomes difficult because, how do you, I mean, I now know people that on both sides that what I would consider pretty damn reputable sources, they won't even, they're like, well, but of course XYZ says that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and we're getting to the point where the conspiracy theory mindset is so high, justifiably so in a lot of cases.
Well, look how many have come
How do we
true.
get back from the brink?
Well, I mean, look at how many. Like, I mean, I remember back when I was a kid. If you thought JFK was assassinated, or if the CIA had any part of the JFK assassination, you had a tinfoil hat.
Mm-hmm.
The CIA on their website came out and said that they, not necessarily that they did it, but they had a part in it. And and I mean UFOs. You were a kook if you believed in UFOs. Our own government has come out, and many governments around the world have come out and released videos, that the military has taken and stuff, that there's UFOs.
Yeah,
So
you guys see that statement that came out from the Trump administration saying we have technology that can affect time and space?
no, I did not.
I saw it was one of those things. You know how like the worst thing about Twitter, by the way, or X or whatever, is when you first open it up and you have like that 3 seconds to see a tweet and then it refreshes and it goes and it's gone. You're like,
Yeah.
I saw it on that like 2 or 3. I'm like, wait, what? And of course it fucking refreshes and I no idea where it went.
I hate that.
But
Let me look it up.
yeah.
So first VA rifleman says the movie Good Shepherd is actually pretty honest about the CIA and Bonesman involvement in that, and the OSS.
Involvement in what?
And JFK.
Oh, okay.
But no, it's there's a lot of stuff. I mean, fluoride in the water. People forever, were talking about how because it's a toxic byproduct of like some kind of manufacturing, and so basically, they came up with this narrative that it's supposed to be good for your teeth and all this stuff, so they could dump it in the water supply, and come to find out, a lot of research now is saying that it makes people more passive. That it's basically just kind of dumbs people down and makes them more passive. So it's that was a tinfoil hat theory. Contrails. I mean, I haven't seen anything reputable, kind of debunking that or lending it any credibility, but that's another conspiracy theory.
So this is the official statement.
Okay, go.
The official statement was, our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow, and improve productivity. That's what he said.
That's interesting that he phrased it like that.
Yeah, I don't know what that's really supposed to mean, but
the problem with Trump though is he says some kooky ass shit.
This isn't Trump. This was Michael Kratsios, a former director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy.
Oh, okay, that's a different story. I was just thinking, like, this is one of those, where,
well, if Trump said it, I've just been like, oh, he's just saying shit.
Yeah, because he's famous for just saying shit.
I saw a meme on that note. I saw a meme today, and it was like these two. It was just a cartoon, but it was like these two women from they look like they're from like the 60s or 70s. And the one woman's telling the other woman, she's like, and if you say and shit after anything, it makes it sound gangster. She's like, for example, I like to crochet and shit. It's so funny. And I'm like, oh my God, it does sound gangster. I like to crochet and shit.
I don't know if it sounds gangster, but it does sound more gangster.
More gangster. More gangsta.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I got a gangsta. But so, I mean, I keep coming back to the train of thought of, how do we fix this? We as, American citizens, because I mean, that's why I voted for Trump is, I like the idea of somebody that's not a career politician. And supposedly, he was going to, make the Epstein list public. And then, a couple of weeks after, all of a sudden, what's her name? She comes out and says that for national security reasons that they can't release it. And, just all these things that they promised they were going to do, they're like not doing.
Oh, and, by the way, have you guys seen what came out on the budget this last week?
Is this a Doge thing or?
No, it's about something about Senate rules that were just passed by like the Senate Republican. I'll have to look it up, but it's like basically the budget it would add more to the budget spending wise than like the last three major things, than like COVID relief and the Trump tax cuts and something else. I'll try to find it all before the show's over. But
yeah.
To your point, it's like I thought we elected. I mean, as an example, I do think if I had to pick something on Trump's platform that I was the most
bullish
about.
Yeah.
I don't like how Doge has gone about it because I think it was a little bit haphazard, but was like, okay, finally, it seems like the average American cares that we're printing into the ground and we're going to destroy our country by turning us into monopoly money.
Exactly.
And yet it's like, okay, guys, but if you're going to save, let's just be generous right now, because last time Elon was in the cabinet was like 2 weeks ago when he said that the goal was now $250 million by the end of 2020. Sorry, $250 billion, so $250 billion by 2026.
Yeah.
But if you're going to pass a budget that adds a couple $1 trillion, what's the fucking point?
Exactly, because I mean the whole point is to get the deficit down and to get the debt down. But yeah.
Oh, did you guys see Tucker's interview with the former Bush administration, the lady that was on the? Bush
I did.
administration.
I need to
No,
get
what's
back.
her name?
What was her name? Anyway, there's a awesome part of her whole thing where she talks about how a lot of the $22 trillion that is missing was to build underground cities.
Really?
There's all these cities connected throughout the whole country that are underground, and some of them are under the oceans.
Well,
And who's in these
another.
cities?
That was another conspiracy theory, and I know that
Conspiracy
there
theory.
was some videos going around for a while that there was these huge complexes in Missouri, in like the limestone, and there was a truck driver, and he videotaped going into these old mines and drove. I mean, it was like 4 lanes, and they were just trucking supplies, like generators and food and all kinds of stuff down into these freaking mines, and it was basically made it look like it was some kind of arc, like there's a like a meteor, like out of a movie. There's like a meteor that's hurling towards us, and they're building these underground cities. Oh yeah, riflemen. The rumor that under the Denver airport there's supposed to be a huge city.
Yeah. Like there's a bunch of different places under LA. You know, the girl that was claiming, or she claimed to be raped by all those famous people.
Yep.
When she was a little girl, and she said that basically they're like, well, where is this all happening? She goes, well, it's in the city underneath LA. And they're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, well, all the famous people go down into this city that's under LA, and that's where a lot of the trafficking happens.
Suppose there's a Starbucks under there. Like there's actually because it's like it's where
the guy
it's where
worked at it.
Yeah, they're supposed to be for the rich and the famous because they just want to get their coffee too, but they don't want to necessarily be seen. So they just go down, and there's like this
didn't
whole.
Didn't she get suicided? Didn't that girl that you were just talking about, Taylor? Didn't she commit suicide?
No, that was the Epstein girl. The Epstein girl.
Oh, that's who that was. That's who that was.
Yeah, which it's amazing. All these people that have all this dirt on these people magically all want to commit suicide.
And
I'm kind of curious to see why that hasn't happened to Diddy yet.
Yeah, that is true.
Who says it's not gonna?
He's gotten awfully quiet. I
think that he's probably staying very quiet because he knows that if they think that he's going to say something, then he's going to commit suicide.
So, Catherine Fitz, that's the former Bush lady that says there's underground. She said she used bases instead of cities.
Speaking of underground, what happened to the pyramid? Like for like a week, it was this crazy thing, and it's just gone.
Somebody said that whole thing was just AI generated, like that whole scan was just AI generated.
Oh, man.
Which seems like that was something that was just far fetched, because it's like no one's detected these huge pillars with anything.
Well, with as much as they've dug around that, the pyramids, and as much ground penetrating radar and all these different things. Now, do I believe that the pyramids potentially could have been like some sort of generator? Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that points to that. That there was with the copper rods that are in there, and they've done samples, and with vinegar, and basically like the Baghdad battery, like a larger version of the Baghdad battery that they found from Mesopotamia. And it basically was a very low voltage, amperage battery that they think was probably used to like gold plate and, electroplate, certain items.
Oh, and I started watching Joe Rogan just interviewed, what's his name? The physicist, Hal Puthoff. You guys need to watch that one. That one's pretty crazy. But so Hal Puthoff, he was a physicist that was working radio. He said he was working in the radio industry, and then one day was reading an article about how this guy could mentally affect plants, like communicate with them telepathically, and they could scientifically verify that he was causing effects. And so he became kind of obsessed with this. He goes, well, that's not possible. You can't do that, in his understanding of physics. So he became kind of obsessed with it. And that led him to, now I can't remember the guy's name that he said, but it was a guy that claimed, he was a famous guy, but he claimed to have, psychic abilities. And so they're like, well, we have this way that we can test if you can affect things with your mind. And so he goes, well, I can't move things. But I can affect things in little ways here and there. And they said, oh, well, we're doing this test where we shield this area, and it has to go into this containment area to make sure nothing can get inside. No electron, nothing can affect, because they want to measure quantum things at the quantum level.
Yeah.
And so they had him sit right next to it. And then he goes, well, what do you want me to do? And they're like, well, slow it down. And then on their radar screen, it slows down the measurement. And they're like, no way. So they like try to look at all their like machine, like, is there bubbles in the tubes? Is there something else? And they're like, okay, try it again. And he goes, well, you want me to make it go fast? They go, yeah. And so he thinks about it, and then it starts like the quantum or the electrons or whatever he was messing with started going really fast.
Yeah.
And so they're obsessed with this, and they write these papers, and then all of a sudden the CIA shows up. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, we're interested in what you're studying here. And he's kind of like, well, why are you interested in this? And they're like, well, we know the Russians are putting a lot of money into this right now. And our spies are telling us that they're, what now we know is remote viewing us and seeing our technology. And so he's like, well, okay, well, we can bring our people in and see, what do you want us to do? And they're like, well, we want you to see if you can, I think they had something, and they said, see if you can see into this, what we have in this box. And so
the project was called Project Stargate.
Yeah. So, well, this Hal guy on a road, he's the dude. He's the guy that started it and did everything. So he's saying they started doing that. Their people could start seeing into that. They go, then we did this one experiment where they said, here's a coordinates, go into this place. And their remote viewer goes into the place. And then he starts writing down all these code names. And so then they said, all of a sudden, all these FBI people, all these CIA people show up. And they're like, how did you get those names? How do you know this stuff? They started interrogating all of them. And they were like, well, we're remote viewing and trying to explain what this really is. And they think that somehow someone's leaking this information, and they're trying to figure out how this information is being leaked. Yeah. And ultimately they're like, no, but we can teach you guys how to do this too. And so they had one of the head CIA guys there, and they taught him how to remote view. And then he was able to do
the men that stare at goats.
Yeah. Maybe this is that movie. But anyway, that guy went on Joe Rogan, and he explains how they started that whole program and how remote viewing works, and that it is a legitimate thing that people can do. And it's something that actually they said we can teach pretty much anyone how to do it.
This is frustrating because I can't usually view anything without finding my remote. Yeah. And yet these people can do shit without a remote. I'm just like, well, I guess I won't watch anything.
Jeff, you just start doing this, you're like, it's over there.
There you go. I found it.
I am the remote. Where am I?
My ADHD is bad enough. If I could remote view whatever I wanted to remote view, I would literally starve to death probably. I would just be completely useless to anybody else.
Yeah, no, I think it's
Men's and
probably
women's
better,
health.
with where we are in evolution that we don't have those abilities.
Right? Can you get hired by the CIA? Like, we need to know about the nuclear codes. Okay, I'm just making sure they're not in Margot Robbie's bathroom. They don't need to be. Hold on, she's taking a shower. They may be in the shower. Yeah,
It's
I
good to
can
be
take
thorough.
shit.
It's good to be thorough. So, well, with that, gentlemen, I got a hot date. I need to go and get some grub with a beautiful lady. But as always, it's been a pleasure. And till next time,
Till next
we'll see
time,
you.
you better
All
not
right.
remote.